Hello, hockey fans, and welcome to MVP Sports. Ricky Widmer here, along with Mark Weber, here to talk a little bit about the Game 7 that just wrapped up, probably, about 40 minutes ago, Mark?
Yeah, probably just a little bit after 10, maybe 10:20.
And we had the Kings winning a thriller in overtime over the Blackhawks, and I'm going to say it right now. If any bias comes out, I'm still feeling a little heated from the Blackhawk loss because just let's start with that last goal. The way it happened, Mark, me as a Blackhawk fan, you're a Blackhawk fan, but you already said earlier to me way before this game even happened that you didn't think the
Mhm.
Hawks were going to repeat. I had that hope. The goal happens, and I kind of like just a deflating feeling. Like I got like upset in my stomach. I couldn't believe it happened.
Yeah, you don't want to win it, or you don't want to lose at home. Obviously, it's kind of it's a shame, but I guess it's a little bit of payback because the Blackhawks have beaten a lot of teams on the road in some big moments in the NHL playoffs. But it's a little bit defeating, but at the same time, we were getting well. There's some bias right there. Even the Blackhawks were getting kind of outplayed really for a good chunk of the third, and then for overtime, I think there was a most of it we were being pretty outplayed. We were I think we were showing a lot more fatigue than the LA Kings were, and I think that really had a big impact for it. And honestly, that goal, there's really nothing Crawford could have did. I mean, with Letty right there having that kind of bounce like that, that's just kind of
Off
how
of his back.
yeah, that's just how kind of Game 7 was. A lot of weird things going on that the goalies couldn't really control.
Well, and I'm going to say something, and I want you to either agree or disagree. That's usually how things work, right? I'm going to say this because this is what I thought immediately after the game. Maybe it's because I'm a Hawks fan. I don't want to give anything to the Kings, but I felt like the Blackhawks lost this game. The Kings did not win it.
No, not at all. I completely disagree with that. I think that the Kings almost lost the series themselves. I think they had the series pretty easily wrapped up for a while. They just couldn't get it done finally. Um, Earlier on in the series, the Hawks were not playing well at all. They finally started doing some good things, but the Kings, I mean, they took Patrick Kane almost entirely out of this game. Marian Hossa was a complete non-factor.
Well, and
And
that's the
he,
thing.
and
And that's the thing. And I want to cut you off right there is
Mhm.
because the whole game I'm thinking Marion Host is leading us in shots. I think it either at the
Yeah.
end of the third or in overtime they were like he leads the team with 6 shots. Why the heck is he like? Okay, I get it. Marion Host is going to shoot the puck, but it wasn't working. And I'm sitting there going, why not give more opportunities to maybe Patrick Kane, who showed himself in these playoffs, or maybe a
Well,
Patrick Sharp, who was showing himself in this game?
yeah, I mean, Sharp was doing great. Patrick Kane, though, obviously, is kind of, like I was saying before, he was effectively taken out of this game. Besides that one assist, uh, the Kings, they obviously were focusing on him. And he's one of those players where you can't completely take him out of the game. You can only kind of limit his performance. Uh, so, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. Obviously, I would have liked to see more of it go away. But, Host is a huge part of this offense. And unfortunately, these kind of things happen. And it was just happening to Sharp not too long ago where he finally broke out of his little slump that he was in. So for the Chicago Blackhawks and Coach Q, I think you can't really move completely away from what has worked so well in the past.
Well, and the one thing that I was kind of thinking of, and I'm trying to think back to the moment. I can't remember if it was in late third period. I want to say it was in overtime where Patrick Kane had the puck, did a little behind the behind the back pass to a centering Duncan Keith coming right down the middle, and instead of just shooting the puck, Keith tries to get to the outside, do a little toe drag, and he loses the puck. I think right there, that's one play that I'm kind of focusing in on. That yes, Jonathan Quick is a great, stellar, any word you want to use to describe amazing goaltender. Insert that here. But I felt like that was a spot where it's like, should have taken a shot, your best chance to score.
Sure, sure. Obviously, a little bit of hindsight, but there was a few of those type of situations where the Blackhawks probably should have just taken the chance instead of trying to make something work. But I think when you're kind of facing a guy like Quick, you kind of psych yourself out of the easy ones sometimes. You kind of think like, okay, I have to work extra hard to get away from him and do something like that. And especially when you're coming, I remember that play too, when you're coming right up the center. Rarely in this whole series have the Blackhawks been able to go up the center at Quick. That was pretty much the entire game plan of the Kings, saying, have fun on the sides, guys, because we're not letting you get anywhere near the front of Jonathan Quick. So I think anytime you can kind of get one of those rare opportunities, you got to take it. But at the same time, I'm not, surprised that you have a situation where like Duncan Keith is being surprised that he's even allowed to be in the front. So he's trying to maneuver something else just out of kind of the gameplay habit.
Well, and I mean, this is what I was thinking coming into the game, and one of the things I'm thinking about now. It was all about which streak was going to continue. I'm pretty sure for the Blackhawks it was in games 5, 6, and 7 from this year and last year. 13-0 now since the win in Game 6? Are we going to make it
not
14-0?
anymore.
Yeah. Well, now it's 13-1, but were we going to make it 14-0, or was it going to be on the Kings side, where not only have they not lost a Game 7 in these playoffs, each series that they've played, they've had to go to a Game 7, not even just a Game 7, a Game 7 on the road, and they have won. And not even just that, one of their big players, Justin Williams, he's never lost a Game 7 in his career.
Yeah. So it's an interesting one, and what they always say, Ricky, especially I love to say it, is streaks, all they do is they end. That's all that happens. So it's a tough one. It was a great series, it really was. I think, honestly, for the Chicago Blackhawks, you pointed out the one, and as a Blackhawks fan myself, my thing is I think back to the 5-on-3 and just sit back and be like, I remember watching that and thinking, coming away with nothing on that, it was like, if something's going to come back to bite us, I think it's going to be not taking advantage of the 5-on-3.
That's a good point, because not only did we not get anything from that 5-on-3, we only got one shot, because all the Hawks wanted to do was pass it around. It's like, shoot the damn puck.
I mean, that is classic Chicago Blackhawks, essentially. Just pass it around. We have all these great shooters. Let's just keep moving. One of them eventually is going to get a good shot. And, of course, and that particular one, I believe it was Marian Hossa that was designed to take the shot on that one. And, we already talked about that. Marian Hossa just was not getting it done. He was essentially a non-effective, shooter, scorer in this series, unfortunately. But it's, there's obviously 40% for power plays for the Chicago Blackhawks. That's not bad, but you're not happy with it either, essentially. It's an interesting one. It's going to be, for Chicago Blackhawk fans, we got a few things we got to kind of work on. The Kings, they played a great series. They got a great opponent in the New York Rangers coming up soon. So I'm not particularly that ecstatic and excited about this Stanley Cup Finals. I think, Chicago would be a better matchup just because LA doesn't seem to care about their hockey team at all. And I would much rather have had the Canadians playing in the Stanley Cup than the Rangers. But, what can you do?
Well, and here's the one thing I'm thinking about. Kind of compare this series, this game, to the past. There was a play in overtime where Hawks had it in their own zone, almost turned the puck over in the middle of the zone going up to the blue line. And my mind kind of did like a flashback, one of those things like you see in movies where you're watching the game and then all of a sudden, boom, it flashes back to a previous game that you would have watched. For me, this game happened yet again the year after we won our first cup. And when I say first cup, I mean the 2010 Cup. We play Vancouver. This was a quarterfinal series. We lose 3 straight, win 3 straight, and then in that Game 7, we lose in overtime on a turnover up the middle. Burroughs buries it. And I saw it, and for a second I was like, no, it's going to happen again. And then it did, and I was like, okay. I don't need to have a heart attack tonight.
Well, thank you for describing what a flashback is for us, Ricky.
Yes.
But yeah, I think I remember that one too. And there was there's a few of those things where we kind of gave up some dumb turnovers in overtime. And that's what I'm saying, where it's just you could tell the Blackhawks were fatigued, and I think it got down to it. And LA said in overtime, all we need is one goal. All right, we're here. We're in Chicago. We know that we've let a lot of things slide so far, but let's just get it done. Let's just do it right now. Let's just finish this. And that's what they were able to do. They played harder than us. And by harder, I mean a lot more physical than us. They had about 15 more hits than we did. And that's something that is a common cause for the Blackhawks. They just don't play as physical as other teams because that's just not their play style. And then they have a lot of trouble against some of these more physical teams. And that's just what it was.
I wouldn't say that the Blackhawks don't play physical. I mean, you've got
We're a finesse team. We're not a physical team.
Dodd and Chaucer who go balls to the walls most night. The one thing I'm thinking, though, is when you were talking about the Kings in this game, and I feel like the Hawks, you come out early scoring 2 goals right out of the gate, and I'm like, good, that's what we need. And then it seemed like each time the Hawks would do something, the Kings would come right back. They tie it up at 2. Boom, Hawks take a 1-goal lead. That's the end of the first. Then it's, Kings tie it, we take a lead. And the Hawk fan in me didn't see this, but now seeing it back in hindsight, I should have seen that third period goal by the Kings, and I should have said, it's over. We're not going to win.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you get into overtime, anyone's game, essentially. Erase the scoreboard, next point wins, and everyone else goes home. It was an interesting one. Kings, obviously, they played a great series. They were letting up a little bit, but they kind of pulled it together, and they got it done. They got it done on the road, as they typically do, apparently. So, you gotta give credit to the LA Kings. It's gonna be a good one, and I bet they're feeling pretty good. They're gonna be getting tired, obviously, in the Stanley Cup Finals. New York has a little bit more rest, but at the same time, I think they're feeling pretty good about what they've done so far in this Stanley Cup playoffs.
Okay, so now to kind of close out, we've finished the reactions to Game 7. Right now, to end this video, let's look a little bit at the Stanley Cup. We're going to have the Eastern Conference champions. They've had a little bit of rest. The New York Rangers, some things about them. Assist leader, Ryan McDonough. Goals and points leader, obviously, it's Martin St. Louis with 13.6 goals. But the one thing I kind of thought about this in the third period of this game, the Hawks-Kings game, when it was 4-4 late, is we're actually going to get to see a little bit of player getting back at one of his old teams as Marian Gaborik. He's on the Kings. He played for the Rangers 4 out of his many careers in the NHL, or many years in the NHL, I should say.
Yeah. It's going to be an exciting one to see, I think. Obviously, as I was saying before, this is not out of the possible matchups. I think this was probably my least one I wanted. This was last on my list, but it's the Stanley Cup Finals. It's going to be very fun to watch. It's going to be interesting, exciting. I think honestly, as us as Chicago Blackhawks fans, we see Jonathan Quick a lot of times, and we see the bad parts of him. I think every now and then.
That's because we have become the Quick Slayers.
Yeah, and I think what we're going to see out of the actual Stanley Cup Finals here is we're going to see a lot better of a performance out of Jonathan Quick. I think you got some great scorers with the Rangers, obviously, but Jonathan Quick, he takes out great scorers all the time, and this team is very defensive able, and they're very physical, and I think they're going to give the Rangers a very hard time, just like they gave a hard time to the Chicago Blackhawks.
Okay, I'm going to throw this question out here just to be that guy in the room, and I'm probably going to say this name wrong, but Kreider of the Rangers, the big thing he was known for in the last series against the Canadiens was basically injuring Carey Price and being the reason why he did not play the rest of the series. Do you see a goonish type play by Kreider again to maybe injure Jonathan Quick to give the Rangers a little bit of an edge?
Um, no, I mean I don't see it happening only because I think that's a dumb and bad play, and I don't think you can get away with doing two of those in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Is it possible? Sure, but at the same time, I think going into this game, the Kings are not going to let that guy get near their goaltender. They already don't let people get into the center around Jonathan Quick. They already keep him on the sides.
Hmm.
So I don't think they're letting anybody get anywhere near Jonathan Quick. And I think if he does go anywhere near him, I don't think he's going to be thinking about getting back over there anytime soon. I think they'll definitely put their big boy pants on and make sure he knows you're not pulling that away again.
Well, and the last thing before we get into our predictions, I just want to say this Stanley Cup playoffs, I feel like it's going to be a low scoring Stanley Cup playoffs because on one side, the Western Conference side, you have Jonathan Quick, who, yes, I mean, like we've said, the Hawks have been kind of like the quick slayers, and we've gotten the best of Jonathan Quick out of any other team in the NHL over the years. But I feel like Quick is going to do a good job in the Stanley Cup. Then on the other side, you got Sir Hendrik Lundqvist. And I don't know
He's
about you,
great.
Mark. I don't know about you. I'm going to pick Lundqvist when it's all said and done. Here's my prediction.
Mhm.
It's going to shock the world. Rangers in 5.
Yeah, Lundqvist is obviously, there's nothing you can say about it. He's absolutely elite. He's just one of the best. But at the same time, so was Quick. And Quick is the reason why the LA Kings won their first Stanley Cup not too long ago. So I feel good about the Kings. I think they are riding this high horse of momentum right now. Uh, having the little bit of a break is a nice thing, but it doesn't always help. Sometimes it is best to just keep riding. You've won 21, of the or not. You've played 21 games and you've went ahead and you've won 16 or 12 of them. See, it's late. Math is tough. But
Mm-hmm.
you've won 12 of these games. You played 21 of them. You are road tested. You've had so much go into this. You have your blood on the floor. Your heart's on your sleeves. You're feeling good if you're the Kings. The Rangers, I'm sure they're feeling great too. But if I'm a Kings player right now, I'm thinking I've done more than you. I've fought harder than you. I deserve this more. And I think that little momentum helps build this team up and gives them just a little bit more. And when it comes down to it between, Quick and Lundqvist, I definitely think that Quick has a good supporting cast around him to even help him even more. I see, I'm going to say 6. 6 for LA,
You're going to
bringing
say
back,
LA in 6?
bringing back the Stanley Cup. They're going to bring
L-
Lord Stanley's Cup back to LA where nobody cares.
LA in 6? See,
Mm,
the thing that and this is going to be my last point on the Stanley Cup is I'm actually going to use the Blackhawks as an example. Last year's Stanley Cup run, we have a short series in the quarterfinals where we get rid of the Wild in 5 games. Then we have that bruiser of a semifinal series where we win 1, lose 3, and then sweep the Red Wings in the last 3 games to go on to the quarterfinals, and then we beat the Kings in 5 to get some rest before the Stanley Cup and eventually win it.
mm.
The Rangers on the other side, they played, and I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games in the quarterfinals against the Flyers. Then go down 3-1 to the Penguins, come back winning game 7. And then against Montreal, obviously, they went ahead and beat Montreal in 6. But the Rangers have been tested too. They've gone to
Yeah.
2 game 7s themselves in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Definitely, but I mean, when you look at these two kind of series, I mean, remember the Kings were down 3-0 to the Sharks. I mean, that they were almost knocked out immediately upon getting in there. Chicago very easily could have taken them out many times. I'm not saying it's a huge like basically the Rangers walked in, but I think if you're the Kings right now, you feel like man, everybody keeps throwing everything they have at us. We keep almost getting knocked out yeah, we're still here. After the the game ended, they're describing themselves as cockroaches. They're just never going to die. They're always going to be in there. And that's the right attitude to have. No matter what they throw at you, no matter how down you can get, 3-0 means nothing if you win the next 4.
Well, and the one thing I will say, last thing I say before we sign off, is the last time these two teams met, it was in New York on September 17th. Kings won 1-0.
And we'll see if there's any more of that. And I hope we get a few more goals than just one.
Every game, 1-0 game. What would that be like? That'd be some cool stuff.
I love some good goalie saves and everything, so I would actually be entertained with that. But I think some of your not so diehard and hardcore hockey fans are going to be a little more upset with only one goal.
Well, that's going to do it for our Western Conference Finals Game 7 reaction / kind of a Stanley Cup preview. Tell us what you guys think down below in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe to MVP Sports, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, all that good stuff. Mark, your Twitter handle is @the with 2 E's. Mark Weber, mine is @Ricky Widmer. Follow us as well. We love talking about sports. And hit us up down below. What did you agree with, disagree with? And as always, I usually say have a good day, but it's night here. Have a good night, everybody.